Hi, Krista.
Hi, Tim.
Thanks for working.
Your video?
I don't know what happened to it.
Really? Look at this iPad, how disgusting it is.
Hey, Krista, I'm going to check out and come back in.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to the video. It was just working and then it just disappeared. I don't know what. I'll be back.
Okay.
Will get close to or places open up closer, then that's when they'll make transitions. I've paid attention to what customers say when they come in, what brings them to the dispensary where I worked, and also where, compared to where else they've gone. Sometimes it really is what kind of loyalty program that you have. I think in PA, for certainly, there's really not a difference in product from place to place. And I would imagine in New Jersey, it would be a long time before maybe there was product differentiation, simply because obviously as long as it remains federally illegal, it's going to be whatever's created in the state itself. And that's one of the things that I'm working on is identifying a consultant to work with who can help with things like, what does a budget look like for something like this? Knowing that a micro business does have a cap on, in addition to number of employees and space, and the amount of product that you can handle in a given month. And from what I've looked at, in that the way that that's quantified, it's in a weight of the actual plant. So I don't know how they're going to translate that or, have us calculate that to other types of products. But when I just look at the plant, the amount that they allow, it seems like a significant amount. So if you were to actually manage to turn over that 1,000 pounds or whatever it is a month, it would potentially be quite profitable. Having said that, I'm not sure that that's right. So that's why we're engaging to find someone who's been through this process before, who really knows the financials, so we could plug in the things that we want to do as a business, the way that we want to structure it and what we want to pay employees and all of that sort of thing, and make sure that it still is. And we're pretty close to that. We've interviewed a number of different people to work with that can provide that kind of help. But I think so. I mean, it certainly seems like it should be a viable business. What I would say is, from being subscribed to the New Jersey program as a patient, people travel and the lines are long. If the only day that you can go is a Saturday, you're going to wait in a long line. And I think the state sees that, number one, medical patients are underserved, but then generally there's a market, obviously. So there's an opportunity for a lot of businesses to do well.
Carrie, is that because there's so few medical dispensaries in New Jersey?
I think it is. I think they estimate 100,000 patients in the program.
That's what I read.
Yeah, but I think there's 12 dispensaries right now, and I think it's just not enough to serve the need.
And there's not yet any idea about how many licenses New Jersey will be issuing, right? Not until they name the board or?
No, and what's interesting is, so they did cap in the law that was voted on in December, that, you know, we know is still sort of getting amended, hopefully just specific things and not major amendments. But they talk about capping cultivation, and I think it's 37 or 38 cultivation. So what sometimes we call grower licenses. But the rest of them don't have caps. I don't know whether they'll change that. I think it's within the commission's, you know, remit to say we are going to cap, or just to cut it off when they decide to cut it off. There are commitments that I've read in the law where the commission is going to have to report out on the demand, I think on an annual basis, and make sure that they are assessing supply demand and making sure that if there need to be more licenses, that they do that they open up again for the application process. I don't know what they'll do if they find out there's too many licenses. I don't know if they'll just let economics deal with that. But yeah, it's a lack of supply.
And in your current role, you're a pharmacist at?
Yes. Yes. And what that means in the state of Pennsylvania, they require originally it was a pharmacist or a physician to be on site for all open hours. They broadened that, so now it also includes physician's assistants and nurse practitioners, but they want someone with a medical background to be able to consult with patients. They don't mandate consultation. In the Pennsylvania system, the doctor can indicate if he or she recommends that the patient consult, but that's not binding either. And ultimately, after you meet with the patient, it's their choice what they do. So even if, you know, I have some pretty specific advice, you know, it's completely up to them what they want.
And, oh, I guess it doesn't matter for recreational use. You won't need a pharmacist, right?
You won't need one, but it is something that I absolutely want to be a component of my business.
Mhm.
So what that means is whether I'm physically on site, whether I have another pharmacist on site, or whether I'm accessible by phone. I found that I work Sundays, so it's a quieter day at the store. Having said that, the people that do want to talk to a healthcare professional really want to talk to you. A lot of people have a history that maybe they have no history specifically with the plant, or they have a very negative feeling about it, and they're almost really unhappy that they're there. They're very scared about, they don't want to get high, they don't want to feel out of control, but you know, they also maybe don't want the surgery that's the next step to deal with their pain. So it's a very thoughtful conversation about what the options are, about what's realistic. It is a trial and error process for people, and it's trying to get them comfortable with that. And I feel that that's important. So, you know, the retail agents do a great job. They're very knowledgeable about the product. And I've gone into a lot of stores, Portland, Seattle, California. Whenever I'm in those places, I go in and I ask and I look, because they all have different things, and obviously the law and the regulations are all different. But I find that it's important to be able to help those folks that actually do want to ask questions, or that might have concerns. That to me, it's a core part of the service that I want to offer. But you're absolutely right. The retail setting it's not going to require that. The medical setting doesn't require it today in Jersey.
Carrie, how about when you say 1,000 pounds a month? Is that marijuana in the raw form, or does that include edibles, or where do the edibles come into this, or out of it, or the info on that?
It's a great question. So the only thing that I could take away from reading the law was that they've only quantified the plant. It's the plant. It's the dried plant. So it's not like green plants. Well, you know, for cultivators, their limits are probably based on the green plant, but for a retailer, it's based on the product that you'll actually sell across the counter. They indicate that they'll be like, or equivalent, you know, but they don't really explain how you get to that equivalent, because a weight of a plant does, you know, they all have different percentages of THC, CBD. So if they're going to quantify on something that you could apply to every product, I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but I'm guessing that's what they're going to do. They're going to have like equivalents of the active ingredients. Yeah, but there are, I mean, in New Jersey today, there are tinctures, there are lozenges. There's not candy, and I don't anticipate anything that really looks like candy will be available. As you can imagine, the state does not want to promote use under, you know, for people under the age of 21, let alone, you know, children. So they, you know, and they're also controlling for the dose in the law so that people can have a consistent dose so that they know what they're taking. And it's actually really specific. So I think that's how it's going to work out. They'll probably just have equivalents in something like THC, something measurable, quantifiable. I know, Marnie, you sent some questions, you know, in advance, and I would like to make sure that we talk about those. I appreciate them very much because there are some, I think there's some potential benefits to a town if the business is successful that are across the board, right? And that's tax, right? You can apply a 2% tax that will go to the local municipality. I also want to make sure that I convey that what excites me about this is two things. It's new, it's different, it's exciting. I've seen people really benefit from using the plant, from using extracts from the plant for things that they're struggling to get help with. So for me, just the opportunity to try and help folks that are struggling with things. Beyond that, I definitely see an opportunity to become part of a community, and where we've talked, you know, my husband and I have talked, and I have my sister-in-law and a dear friend of mine for, you know, since middle school, are the three of us that were, you know, really interested in doing this. And we're talking about all the wild ways we could actually be part of the community. So we've talked about, you know, designating a certain amount of a profit to give back to the community for the things that the community wants to do anyway, that they put into their plans, you know. So if it's revitalizing an area, if it's historical preservation, if it's, you know, whatever it is, getting lights somewhere that they aren't, you know, if the business is truly, you know, profitable, then, you know, we see tremendous opportunity for giving back. We've been looking a lot. I haven't seen it where I work, but we've been doing a lot of looking to see how other retail dispensaries in other states give back. I think it's Curaleaf it's a big operation, but in all the states that they operate, they're very, very involved. So they raise money for all the different local and small charities, like local charities where they're actually located. So there's different ways to be connected. I could, you know, we're limited in marketing, so they really wouldn't be advertising things for us other than the community would know that we were being supportive of the community. But, you know, things like 5Ks, things like, you know, the local animal shelter. I mean, I put out there, I want to have a couple of cats that are up for adoption in our place. Like, we have a lot of those kinds of ideas that excite us about being part of the community. So for me, the fact that hopefully it would kind of, as far as a retail setting, and you think about other retail markets, but knowing that there is a demand there, and depending on how the state controls, you know, how many stores there are, or even how a municipality does, because obviously a municipality could say, we're only going to allow one, or we're going to allow none, or, you know, whatever, you know, that is the choice. You know, or could say we just want a micro business, or we want a big business because we have reasons to want, the taxes income is going to be so much more, there's a lot of things to think about from the municipality standpoint. But for us, the exciting part is figuring out how we become part of the community. As you probably read, the micro business is 10 people, 10 employees. And there is the ability to deliver. So we've thought about things like offering that service so that we decrease traffic. Because, as much as the business might be nice, maybe traffic is something you don't want to see increase. And so how do we minimize that? But if you have 10 employees, then they can become part of the community. You know who they are, right? You see them in town, you see them go out to get lunch, like, you know who they are. That's the feeling that I want. I want it to be very much that you know who we are, and you like who we are. So because we're contributing, or
I don't know if you've gotten this far in your thinking, but have you, if you have, what are the kinds of things that you think that a town might do that would be, that would hinder a retail business or that would benefit a retail business? Like, what are some of the things that?
That's a great question. Clearly zoning is important, right? Because the law specifies to some extent, and then looking at whatever zoning exists in the town and figuring out if what the state has outlined aligns with the zoning at all, and where you would even want, a retail shop to be. I think it's one, because location is key, right? So, and the two aspects of location are, one, does the town or municipality want you or not want you? Because if they don't, then to me, there's no point. I don't see trying to change a community's mind if they're really not interested. But I think the other piece definitely is, wanting to be relatively accessible to a highway. So, when I think about 31 and I think about 202, those are obviously important if we're going to try and serve the area with a delivery service to minimize people having to travel, and especially get to people, that can't for whatever reason. Obviously accessibility is helpful. So if you think about that in the context of zoning and think about where you actually would want a place, and make sure that your zoning lines up with that, and whatever conditions you want that you think those through as well. Because I think you have a lot of control. Certainly, a municipality could put limitations on that would be difficult, but when I'm thinking about micro, I can't say that I've thought of anything that would,
And the application requires a letter from the township, right?
I believe that it does. It has in the past for medical. What I understand, and I'm going through the law again, I'm doing it now my way with paper copy and sticky notes, because I did electronic the first time and I just I need that. So, yeah. But the medical did, I know that once you make an application, the first thing that the state will do is send it to the municipality. And unless the municipality says, okay, it won't go any further. Now, whether they are also requiring an upfront, okay, I think they are. That's what I'm hearing from my lawyer, and that's what I'm hearing from the consultants that we've talked to. I just didn't pick that up on my first read through. So either way or both, absolutely the municipality has to approve. And what I like about the preemptive, like it has to be part of your application, is that to me, it gives you the ability to evaluate the business and the people involved in the business and make a decision as to whether that they're a fit for what you want, as opposed to having to unilaterally say yes or no.
So when you apply, you indicate a certain location. It's not like you say, oh, I want a dispensary in Hunterdon County.
Right.
You have to give specific. Okay.
Has to be a very specific location. You have to prove that if they grant you the license, that you are in a position to start to be preparing that to open. So that means you either have to show a lease, that shows that you'll have it, or you have to purchase it, or purchase agreement that indicates that upon grant of the license, you will be able to make that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carrie, how many square feet would like a dispensary need? I mean, 1,000, 2,000 square feet? Do you have a sense on that?
Yeah, so the micro license is limited to 2,500 square feet. I don't even, and I think that's the entire footprint. So bathrooms, security entranceway, storage area, the whole shebang. I'm not 100% sure on the read on that, but I think that that's the way that it's intended to be interpreted. And this is also where, getting an understanding and getting some help of what do you really need. I'm curious also because in my experience in Pennsylvania, they have a vault. So it's a room that only like the manager and maybe one other person has the ability to enter and leave during a given shift. And, when the store's closed, everything's in the vault. So you have to, obviously inventory, you would do that anyway and lock it away. So, and that was a sizable space. In other places, in other states that I've been, clearly the cabinets themselves lock. And so I don't know, but I imagine perhaps that's acceptable. I can't tell from the dispensary I go to in New Jersey exactly what the rules are and whether they, whether they can keep product in locked cabinets. I actually kind of think they go into the vault and get it. I don't even think they keep anything behind the counter or anything like that. So that would be the maximum size. I don't even know if that kind of, if I would need all of that space and how much of that really needs to be up front. I would think that you'd need enough. One of the important things for me is that if people are inside the dispensary and this is kind of funny now because of COVID, you have to have space, right? So I don't want people to have to be standing in line outside or sitting in their cars. So I would want enough space that people could be in there and not be too close to each other, but also from a privacy standpoint, it's important to me so that people can shop and be counseled and ask questions and not feel like in a tight, setup. So to me, the way that we organize it is going to really be oriented around the patient. In the dispensaries I've been in, they tend to be pretty open spaces. Like the counter will run along the periphery with however many stations, and the floor is kind of really open. So even though they're definitely not, well, the Pennsylvania one is definitely meets the 2,500. The New Jersey one that I go to is much, much smaller. So, yeah.
And so all the product is behind the counter? It's not like going to the CVS or whatever?
Exactly. It's
Okay.
all behind the counter. Yeah.
Carrie, how do you see, I believe from what I read is there's going to be, dispensaries with consumption on premise and dispensaries without. Obviously, I think, if something was to happen, we don't want on site because then you've got way too many things. But is that going to be do you think that's going to be a big thing with people about whether they can, consume there or whether they're going to have to drive home for, like I compare a liquor store versus a bar.
Right.
Liquor store, you drive in, get your six pack, and you go wherever you're going to drink your six pack.
Right. Right.
It's the same thing. You've got fights at night, and I was a bartender for a lot of years at Hillbilly Hall. So, it's, I've seen things that happen at bars, and it's, not something that, not something that our township needs. That's for sure. We're way too quiet for that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think there's going to be a big push for that? Consumption on site?
It's a great question, Tim. So when I read that, my first reaction was, well, that's not something I want to do to start with because I don't understand how that's going to play out for exactly what you have said. So My husband was involved in the brew pub business, and I remember learning about like the training that they had to go through and how you flag somebody, and you cut them off, and then they get upset, and then they leave. And then I would say to my husband, "So they leave? Do you call the cops?" Like, and he's like, "No," and I'm like, "But you're sending them out to go drunk drive. Like, I don't understand. Like, not thing I want to get into." I can't speak to what the demand would be. I'm guessing there must be some, otherwise why did they put it in the law? But I don't know what that is. I do not want to be in a position of flagging people or checking that they have a designated driver. What I've read in the law is that people can bring their own, or they could purchase from you and take it to this like adjacent location. You can't have food, you can't have beverages, so there's no money to be made from it. So I don't know what the motivation is to take on all that liability and not make money. Like, at least the bar makes money. So it's not something that interests me. I'm interested to see where that goes, though, because I don't know how you bring together. And don't get me wrong, there are people who medicate with medical marijuana who don't get high or have know their limits, and are very responsible about it. It's not like you take 5 milligram something and you can't drive. But I don't want to be in a position of gauging that. And when people are new to it, we always say, like, you need to sort of carve out a piece of time and say, you're going to try this and you're going to wait and see because, what you take may take a few minutes. If you consume something by mouth, it could take hours, and this is where people, you've probably heard, if they do get into a situation where they don't like it or they don't feel well, it's, they'll take something by mouth and a half hour will go by and be like, I don't feel anything. And then they take another one. I don't feel anything. And then they take a third one, and then it all hits and they go and they can't get out of the chair. And so to me, that's something you figure out in a safe space, wherever that's that you're not driving. And as part of the counseling, I would always do, like, you kind of have to find that day that you're going to figure out how this affects you. And then once you figure it out, then you can make it fit better in your life. But to have that liability isn't really interesting to me.
So do you see when this comes through and they open up these dispensaries, do you see the need that there's so many people that have their medical licenses now that aren't being taken care of, that they're going to be like, not just going to be the guy that wants to get stoned, it's going to be medical use, but is there that much demand that they can't supply now that this being pushed bigger is going to make it easier for those people to get what they need? Is that what you see?
Well, I definitely think, first of all, I do think that probably every medical dispensary is going to open up a sister retail, business, and they are, depending on whether the municipality they're in okays that. They do still have to get the municipality okay, but otherwise they've passed every hurdle, already. I think that'll happen. So I think that'll create more of a market, more of a supply for people right then and there. Having said that, it will be cheaper for medical patients to purchase because they won't pay the sales tax, as I understand it. So they will pay less than an adult use person. Having said that, going to the doctor to get a medical card is not cheap. And I don't know over time, how it plays out. I would hope over time it still is cheaper, that you save enough that it balances out between paying for a doctor visit and the less that you pay for the product versus not having a doctor visit. So I'm not sure if people will switch, even though they have a card that they'll buy retail or vice versa. It might be worth it for them to still go to a medical dispensary.
But there'll be some it'll be easier. There won't be the lines because
Exactly.
there'll be more
That's true.
to get it.
That's true.
Some
And I
people
will
might
tell you-
be willing to pay that extra couple of bucks to go down the street to get it, instead of driving to Prairie or wherever,
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I think
Carrie,
so.
if I have a card
Mhm.
and I don't want to drive to my medical place and you
Mhm.
have a place closer, it's retail. If I come to you, I have to pay the tax or I don't?
You would.
You would, okay.
Yeah. That's how I understand it. I think the medical license continues to be a separate
Okay.
license. Yeah.
Do you know if New Jersey requires a pharmacist or PA or doctor?
They don't.
They don't, okay.
Mm-mm.
So what distinguishes the medical license from the retail or the eventual?
No, that's a
retail?
great question. In the original round, I think they had to have a medical advisory board. In the second round, which, you know, we still don't have the results from because of the lawsuit, they did not require it. It was optional. And if you had one, you needed to include that in your application, but they made it optional. Other than that, this is a great question. When I look through the application for medical, to me, everything I saw, they're probably going to require of an adult use or recreational dispensary. I don't think they're really changing any of the requirements, like their security and personnel and things like that. What I would say is different, and definitely different with the micro license, is any sort of application fee is going to be, they've said in the law, will probably be about half. So they're lowering the bar of entry from a financial standpoint, which, from what I understand, you know, the medical licenses are all vertically integrated. So when I first was exploring this and trying to see how New Jersey implemented, I went and visited Garden State, which was on the location they have on Route 1. And it's incredibly impressive, I have to tell you, because they have all, and then they'll, you know, they would give, because I'm a healthcare professional, I was allowed to have a tour. Healthcare professionals, and if you work for the state official, you can have a tour. And, you know, they literally, you go through the greenhouses, you see the folks that are trimming, like it's all there. It all happens right there. And, you know, it's meticulous. I mean, it's, I remember the pharmacist, they have pharmacists working there, and it's the only dispensary that I know of in the state, the medical dispensary that has them. And she was telling me how, like, if the weather's bad, they put people up at the hotel next door on Route 1 because they need people coming in and checking on the plants. Like, it's just critical. Like, you have to take care of it. But having said that, I don't think that there's anything really like security. The scrutiny for security is going to be just as high. Your plan, the cameras you have to have, all of those things, they're going to be there for the adult use.
Does that facility process too?
Mhm.
Grow and process and distribute?
Do everything.
Huh.
Yep. And so to do that, you had to have a lot of money. You had to have a lot of capital.
A lot.
Like from what I've heard, $15 million you had to have access to, you know, if you were going to get approved. So it's a lot of money. As you might imagine, trying to find a location and negotiate for that, because there's also federal IRS complications, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, the dispensary and any business is going to pay, and I've got a webinar coming up to really try to understand this a little bit more, but you can't deduct business costs, right? So you can't say I pay, you know, I charge $100 in stamps and whatever. You can't write any of that off because federally it's illegal, right? So I love that the way the IRS handles illegal businesses is you can't write off your costs. It's not like, oh, that's an illegal business, we're going to come after you. You just can't write off your costs. So it cracks me up. So that's definitely, you know, one difference. Sorry, I think you asked me something else too, and I got a
No,
little...
you answered my question and more.
Okay.
Carrie?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually an accountant. I actually do tax returns for
Okay.
in Oregon and in Idaho.
Oh, nice.
Okay, but you're right. You can only deduct rent, utilities, and payroll costs. That's it. And you can only go up to your income. You can't take a loss on.
Ah.
But I got a question for you. Have you gone to see the production facility in White House Station on 202? It's the old Walmart building. It's actually a marijuana production facility.
I have not.
I was just wondering if you had done that or not. because I know you need access to get in there, but it just opened recently. Again, it's a actual marijuana production facility.
Wow. So it must be, is it affiliated with one of the existing dispensaries?
I have no idea. All I know is it's the old Walmart building on Route 202 in White House. It's gigantic, and they're growing plants like crazy.
Wow. Wow.
But it must be, because those are the only kind of production facilities right now, right? So it has to be
Well,
associated.
they could be selling to all the dispensaries. Who knows? I mean, you know, I don't know. All I know
Yeah.
is it just opened very recently. So.
I know that, so originally everything had to be literally in the same structure. And then the state allowed those facilities to have outposts that were just dispensaries. So that was a new way that they gave them more places to actually sell their product or reach patients, if you will. So I'll have to look into that one, because it's got to be affiliated with an existing dispensary. So I don't know, because obviously I'm not aware of them having any sort of dispensary there. So that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah, it's like I said, you can drive by. It's very, it's huge.
Mm.
Does anybody else have anything else? Anything else, Carrie, you wanted to say? I mean, you've been great to, it's just great to get all this information from somebody that's on the inside, I guess, I guess my idea is to try to stay ahead of it. And, I think it's something that could be advantageous to our township, and, all the input we can have to this committee is, going to be, move forward and, figure out where we're going to go with it, what the township committee wants us to do with it. And it's part of the plan, which, could be in the works, so, definitely the understanding is once the governor signs this, it's 180 days, and that's not a lot of time to get an ordinance together. So,
It's not.
my goal is to stay ahead. So whether to allow something or let the state tell us, I don't know. If we don't have an ordinance, I'd rather have an ordinance going so that we don't get told to do by the state. If who knows what they're going to do. So, but I really appreciate all your information is key to everything. And just if I appreciate you volunteering to come talk to us, and in the future, if we need some questions answered, we might be calling you, maybe inviting you to another Zoom meeting. But I definitely appreciate your input tonight, and look forward to what happens in the future. We're not stopping it. That's the thing. We're not stopping it. So.
Yeah, it's coming. So it's a matter of what do you want that to mean for your community?
Exactly. And I look at it as tax-based revenue. I'm in business for myself. Any income, I don't care where it comes from. If it's legal, if I get more, I'll bargain it. It's diversity in business is key anymore. So just my input on it. But we really appreciate you coming with us tonight and speaking with us.
I appreciate the opportunity, and absolutely, if there's anything that comes up and you want to ask. The other thing is, as I said, we're literally a couple days away from engaging with a consultant and really to help us with a business plan and the financials, as I mentioned. But if there's anything that comes up that I don't know, I'm more than happy to get their input as well. And I wouldn't reveal, obviously, it's my question. But I'm more than happy to do that, because the people that we're talking to have experience in other states that, they're obviously keeping an eye on things here. So I just want you to have that offer as, beyond me as a resource.
I appreciate it.
And I hope that, I can come back to you in a few months' time and show you where we are. And I don't know what format that'll take place in, but, get your feedback on what we'd like to do. I think in addition to the community things that we want to engage with, we are really interested in also making a difference for our employees. So we're to us, this is an opportunity to help people that could use some help. So what I mean by that is, really offering very good jobs creating a situation where people could live in the community and work in the community and make
Mhm.
enough money to do that and not have to have another job and not have to worry about health insurance and all of that. So hopefully very soon I'll know that if what we want to do is financially viable, but that really is where we're coming from. So hopefully you'll be willing to hear a little bit more in the future.
I have an open mind all the time. So, and I think it would be good for us to hear your info whenever you have it, because you seem to be up on it, and we all have day jobs, so we don't get everything. So, but definitely appreciate your help.
Thank you. I appreciate all
Thank
your
you,
time.
Carrie.
Very nice to meet all of you.
Nice to meet you.
Yep, nice meeting you.
Take care.
Bye, Carrie.
Bye. Thank you, Krista.
You're welcome.